In Colombia, a training flight goes wrong after two planes collide in mid-air.
The Air Force says one pilot died from the incident. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Lianes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. The Philippine economy is back on track with a high growth trajectory. Philippines and Japan to establish self-reliant defense posture. Zulu King Misuzulu Casweltini allegedly poisoned in a monarchy power grab. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez addresses the European Union's issues as its new council president. And Twitter CEO Elon Musk limits Twitter use per day to combat data scraping. National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan states that the Philippine economy is on track to return to its high growth trajectory. Vin Pascua has the details.
NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan calls to attention the challenging economic conditions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. He says the country experienced a significant 9.5% contraction in 2020, resulting in socio-economic setbacks. President Marcos crafted an 8-point socio-economic agenda to address these issues. 1 year into the Marcos presidency, Balisacan notes the strong signs of economic recovery. GDP growth reached 7.7% in the third quarter of 2022. 7.1% in the fourth quarter, and 6.4% in the first quarter of 2023. 2022 reached 7.6 growth average, exceeding the 6.5 and 7.5% target. Recent statistics show unemployment is even lower than pre-pandemic rates. Inflation is also steadily decreasing from 8.7% in January 2023 to 6.1% in May. Secretary Balisacan states that the government will remain committed to protecting the poor and vulnerable from any economic setbacks. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP reports that the Philippines is on track to meet the target of digitizing half of total retail payments by 2023. Digital payments account for 42% of all transactions in 2022, a significant increase from 30% in 2021. BSP Governor Felipe Medalla emphasizes the need of the public toward more efficient payment services. The government spearheaded the policy, conducting 96% of all their transactions digitally. Individuals followed suit with 55% done digitally, while businesses adopting the digitized system are only at 10%. BSP notes that the primary drivers of this increasing adoption are merchant payments, person-to-person transfers, and salary payments.
The Commission on Audit calls out MMDA over delays in 33 flood control projects. Bernadette Manuel tells us more.
COA cites that in the 2022 Annual Audit Report on Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA, that out of 47 projects under the Metro Manila Management Project Phase 1, only 14 projects are completed as of December 31, 2022. According to COA, there are still 33 pending projects where 4 are ongoing, while 29 are still for implementation as of end of 2022. COA record shows that out of the 33, 5 projects involve infrastructure, 19 concern to procurement of goods, while 9 pertain to consultancy services. COA notes that the government already incurred 27.426 million pesos in commitment fees in link to the loan component of the flood control project. A commitment fee is a compensation to the lender for putting aside the loan instead of using it for other reasons to earn interest. COA recommends the MMDA to hasten or maximize the use of loan proceeds to avoid higher commitment fees. Meanwhile, MMDA and the Department of Public Works and Highways vowed to maximize loan disbursement and accelerate deliveries of services, goods, and equipment. Bernadette Manuel reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Senator Raffy Tulfo urges the Bureau of Internal Revenue, or BIR, to impose taxes on luxury items and cosmetics instead of targeting junk food. He emphasizes the reliance of the poorest Filipinos on affordable food items. They go as far as consuming junk food to accompany rice just to survive. The Department of Finance aims to impose a 10 peso per 100 grams or per 100 millimeters tax on pre-packaged foods lacking nutritional value starting 2024. This includes snacks and desserts that surpass specified thresholds for fat, salt, and sugar content. Tulfo suggests that the BIR instead focus on taxing luxury items such as food supplements and cosmetic products. Finance Secretary Benjamin Jokno states that the junk food and sweetened beverage tax is expected to generate an additional 76 billion pesos in the first year and also result in a 21% reduction in the consumption of junk food.
The Department of Tourism investigates its campaign video over accusations that it used material shot taken overseas. Eden Santos for the details.
The Department of Tourism has launched its new slogan dubbed Love the Philippines last week, coinciding the 50 years milestone anniversary of the agency. As part of the celebration, the agency released a new tourism campaign video. However, reports are raised claiming the promotional material used foreign stock footages taken from the internet. Is raised after Philippine blogger Sas Rogando posted on Facebook several images in the campaign video claiming those were taken from other countries. Meanwhile, a fact-check team confirmed that the video showed were taken in Brazil, Indonesia, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. Advertising agency DDB Philippines, who produced the campaign video, profusely apologizes, citing that it is the company's oversight. The OT clarifies that no public funds were used for the audiovisual presentation, and the production cost was solely under the expense of the firm. According to Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco, the campaign project estimatedly cost 49 million pesos. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Taiwan announces a one-year extension of visa-free entry for Filipino nationals. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MOFA, confirms the said extension, which is initially due to expire on July 31, 2023. Under the visa exemption program, Filipino travelers can experience a 14-day visit to Taiwan. However, individuals holding diplomatic office or those possessing service contracts are not eligible for visa-free entry. According to the ministry, this allows the country to revive mutual bilateral exchange in the post-pandemic era. Taiwan targets to attract more than 320,000 visitors from the Philippines this year. MOFA notes that the extension will take effect from August 1, 2023 to July 31, 2024.
Former United States Air Force official Raymond Powell claims that China Coast Guard or CCG vessels pursued two Philippine ships in a resupply mission on June the 30th. He knows that Philippine Coast Guard ships BRP Malabrigo and BRP Malapascua were escorting a small boat to resupply the Philippine Navy ship BRP Sierra Madre when they encountered an armada of CCG forces. He adds that after the resupply mission was conducted, 2 CCG ships followed the PCG ships to the east. According to Powell, 2 CCG vessels and 7 militia ships were positioned to intercept the resupply mission. Another 7 militia ships were on patrol about 20 to 50 kilometers northwest of Mischief Reef. Meanwhile, PCG spokesperson Rear Admiral Armand Balilo cannot confirm if the incident occurred.
The Philippines and Japan are working to establish a defense industry to lessen dependence on foreign arms suppliers. Anne Villanueva reports.
Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. meets Japanese Ambassador Kazuhiko Koshikawa in Camp Aguinaldo to discuss plans to develop a self-reliant defense posture or SRDP program for the Philippines. This is via research and development on defense equipment, system, and various technologies. The Department of National Defense, or DND, aims to limit the country's dependence on foreign supports for its defense requirement by promoting its local arms suppliers. According to Chodoro, Japan introduces a new program that seeks to boost its partner countries' armies that includes the Philippines as one of its first beneficiaries. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yoshikawa lauds the two countries' robust bilateral ties in their defense relations. Both top officials agree to step forward their security partnership. Anne Villanueva, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, court delays the release of the official Guatemalan election results. UK government announces National Health Service recruitment drive. And US President Biden announces new measures for student loans. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Katuwang ninyo para mas maunawaan ang usaping ito.
Usapan natin 8 Bulaga.
Dumating din si Mr. Tobiera, si Tony Tobiera. At doon, inisip niya na i-offer sa amin ang isang noontime program.
So, in short, natanggap namin si
Tuloy.
Tobiera. Nagkaroon na ng show. May 8 Bulaga na.
Matagal lang sinasabi na ginagawa dapat ng DPWH. Nabawasan na ba ang kalidad ng mga programa at pelikulang gawa ng Pinoy? Sa tingin mo ba, mas okay bang negosyo na lang kaysa mamasukan? Check tayo dyan. Check tayo dyan. Check tayo dyan. Mag-reality check tayo.
Oy, congrats to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bago mong show, bago mong bahay, Net 25, the best.
Aba, siyempre, hindi ako pwedeng humiwalay sa inyo.
Sa buhay, minsan lang dumating ang taong masasabi mong tunay na kaibigan.
Yep! At kapag siya'y natagpuan na, huwag mo nang pakawalan.
Ang tunay na kaibigan, laging nandyan kahit kailan.
Handang gawin ang lahat, maging happy ka lang.
Gagawin ang April Song! Para sa'yo, para sa pamilya, at para sa bayan.
Tulad na lang ng inyong mga bagong kaibigan.
Tuwing umaga,
Love
Tony Pet
and everything!
Lunes hanggang Biyernes,
6:30 ng umaga
sa Net 25! Let's get there! Love Tony Pet and everything! Tony Pet and everything! Ang ulam natin! Love Tony Pet and
We now welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. Japan's economic ministry announced the exclusion of 3 Russian energy projects from sanctions. The ministry said the Sakhalin-1, Sakhalin-2, and Arctic LNG-2 are actively participating with Japanese companies for energy security. The ministry also explained that the exemption covers activities deemed critical to Japan's energy projects. Officials said the measure will apply to service operations starting on or after September 30, 2023. Analysts say Japan is reluctant to sanction the Russian energy sector, adding that Tokyo has repeatedly noted the importance of Moscow's energy security for their country.
Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen kicked off his 3-week electoral campaign last weekend. Various critics have slammed this move as highly ceremonial given their lack of any form of opposition. His party is poised to sweep the polls after their top challenger has been barred from taking part in the elections. The Candlelight Party, considered the only viable rival to Hun Sen's Cambodian People's Party, was denied from registration. Hun Sen, who has ruled Cambodia for 38 years, assures the people that his government will build more roads and schools while boosting wages and economic growth. Hun Sen, who is one of the world's longest-serving leaders, has hinted that he will retire in the near future, with his eldest son, Hun Manet, a 4-star general, set to succeed him. Cambodia's parliament last week approved laws to ban anyone who fails to vote in this year's poll from running for office in future elections. Human rights groups accuse Hun Sen of using the legal system to crush the opposition, having multiple political opponents convicted during his time in power. An opposition leader was sentenced in March to 27 years in prison and placed under house arrest for treason over an alleged plot to topple Hun Sen's administration. The Cambodian general election is set for the 23rd of July.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasizes the urgent need to address Haiti's security, political, and economic challenges. He urges the international community to support Haiti.
J'appelle la communauté internationale à venir en aide aux populations dans le besoin. C'est une question de solidarité, mais c'est aussi une question de justice morale. Le peuple haïtien a le droit à cette solidarité. Le peuple haïtien mérite cette solidarité.
He appeals for the deployment of an international force to assist the Haitian National Police. U.S. President Joe Biden has stated that they will focus on strengthening the national police rather than leading such a force. The situation in Haiti is dire, with widespread violence, kidnappings, poverty, and a crippled economy.
South Africa's traditional prime minister has announced that Zulu King Misuzulu Kazwelithini is being treated in a hospital for suspected poisoning. Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who is known as the country's traditional prime minister, called on the Zulu nation to pray for their king. The monarch allegedly sought medical attention in Eswatini because he felt uncomfortable with seeking treatment in South Africa following the sudden death of one of his senior advisors, also of suspected poisoning. However, the king's official spokesman said he was in perfect health, citing that the monarch was out of the hospital and that there was no need for unnecessary panic. Some analysts say that this announcement by the king's spokesman was an indirect rebuttal to Chief Buthelezzi's statement, given that the chief was next in line for the throne. Tensions have also recently surfaced between the monarch and Chief Buthelezzi. King Misuzulu was crowned in front of thousands of his subjects last October in the middle of a vicious power struggle that has been raging within the royal family over the accession of the throne. The Zulu king does not hold formal political power, and the monarchy role within broader South African society is largely ceremonial. But he remains hugely influential with a yearly government-funded budget of several $1 million.
Official results of the Guatemalan presidential election have been ordered withheld by the country's constitutional court. The court granted a temporary injunction to 10 parties contesting the results of the vote 8 days ago. Rani Bayuga tells us more.
Soldiers from the Guatemalan army stand guard outside the Electoral Process Operations Center. Right-wing parties have complained about irregularities. The contested tallies will be reviewed over the next 5 days. The court wants to compare the numbers put into the electoral system with the ones from the actual polling places to make sure they match. The court could order a recount if there are discrepancies. Among the parties challenging the results are those of 3 candidates who have been leading in the public opinion polls before the vote, but they ended up getting less than 8% of the total each. The election produced no definitive winner, since none of nearly 24 candidates came close to getting 50% of the vote. A runoff election will be held August 20th. Rani Bayuga for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro vows to appeal the court ruling that bars him from holding public office. The ruling renders him ineligible for Brazil's 2026 presidential elections and unable to run for any other post for 8 years. Bolsonaro stood trial for his claims that electronic voting machines compromised election transparency. This fueled a violent invasion of the presidential palace, Congress, and Supreme Court by his supporters. 5 out of the 7 judges condemned him for abuse of power, while 2 ruled in his favor.
King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands apologizes for his country's involvement in the slave trade.
Vandaag sta ik hier voor u. Als uw koning en als deel van de regering maak ik vandaag deze excuses zelf.
He also sought forgiveness for his ancestors who took no action against slavery. Dutch Foreign Minister Wopke Hoekstra also directly apologizes in a speech to people of Suriname.
Namens de Nederlandse regering bied ik excuses aan.
He expressed remorse for their historical injustice and acknowledged responsibility for the consequences, such as the racism that came after.
Slavernij is een misdaad tegen de menselijkheid waar Nederland een belangrijk aandeel in had. Op veel plekken in de wereld zijn de sporen van dit pijnlijke verleden nog altijd zichtbaar.
The Dutch government has been actively allocating funds for awareness of their involvement in the slave trade.
In England, the National Health Service, or NHS, will get more than 300,000 staff under a new plan of the government to deal with a chronic shortage of doctors and nurses. The government's long-term workforce plan would include reducing the time doctors spend in medical school and training more homegrown staff.
We're announcing the most ambitious transformation in the way that we staff the NHS in its history, the long-term workforce plan. This is a 15-year plan to deliver the biggest ever expansion in the number of doctors and nurses that we train, and a plan to reform the NHS so we deliver better care in a changing world.
Prime Minister Sunak added that they will train twice the number of doctors, an extra 24,000 more nurses a year to improve patient care. The publicly funded NHS, which marks its 75th birthday on Wednesday, is facing an estimated workforce shortage of 360,000 by 2037 due to an aging population, a lack of domestically trained health workers, and difficulties in retaining existing staff. The NHS has seen unprecedented strikes over the last year, with staff complaining of being underpaid and overworked as they struggle to clear the backlog created during coronavirus lockdowns.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez arrives in Ukraine and expresses clear support for the country as Spain assumes the presidency of the EU. He states that Ukraine's candidacy for EU membership is a priority during Spain's presidency.
The European Commission has recently issued an interim assessment on the status of Ukraine's candidacy to join the European Union. The report is positive and shows significant progress.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky emphasizes the need for a clear invitation to join NATO after the war. During the talks, he criticized the slow delivery of weapons and lack of clarity on pilot training by some Western nations.
Ми домовились, дотиснули, що у нас є коаліція країн, які готові розпочати тренування для українських пілотів. Графіку тренувальних місій немає. Я вважаю, що деякі партнери з цим затягують. Для чого вони це роблять, мені невідомо.
Zelensky expressed frustration over the delays of the promised weaponry.
Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez received European Council President Charles Michel at La Moncloa Palace a day after his trip to Kyiv, where he met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and reiterated his commitment to support Ukraine. Sanchez and Michel discussed the priorities of Spain's six-month presidency of the European Union Council. These include the reindustrialization of the EU and guaranteeing its strategic autonomy regarding the region's economic rehabilitation. Sanchez also stressed his priority towards strengthening European unity while transitioning to more ecological and environmental solutions to promote greater social and economic justice.
Coincidence, your slogan is Europe closer, bringing the EU closer to its EU citizens. That should be the focus for all of us in member states and in the EU institutions. And I have no doubt that you will rise to the occasion.
Spain hopes to make progress on several major EU issues during its presidency, including EU finalizing a controversial pact on migration despite lingering differences within the 27-nation group. Sanchez reiterates that Spain's elections set for this month would not disrupt Spain's presidential agenda into the EU.
Obligatoriamente continuar fortaleciendo la unidad europea. Unidad en torno a nuestros valores comunes, que hoy, desgraciadamente, se ven amenazados, más amenazados que nunca. Unidad en torno al bienestar de nuestros ciudadanos, unidad en torno a nuestro compromiso con Ucrania, con su pueblo, al que no dejamos atrás, vamos a seguir apoyando.
President Biden announces new actions to provide debt relief and support for student loan debtors. The U.S. president seems to be keen on canceling student loan debt through alternative legal authorities after the Supreme Court blocked his signature program to eliminate up to $20,000 in student debt for millions of Americans. Biden said his administration will work to forgive student debt through the Higher Education Act of 1965, which authorizes the Education Secretary to modify, waive, or compromise federal student loans under special circumstances. The White House also has touted its previous efforts to cancel debt through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. However, it's limited to borrowers working in the public sector. Some legal experts have argued Biden could propose a narrower plan that still invokes the HEROES Act, although it likely would have a significantly smaller reach.
Let me begin by saying I know there are millions of Americans in this country who feel disappointed and discouraged or even a little bit angry about the court's decision today on student debt. And I must admit I do too.
As part of the sanctions against Russia's advancements in Ukraine, the European Union or EU leaders discussed the future of the more than 200 billion euros of assets of the Russian central bank that have been frozen in the EU accounts. In a two-day summit held in Brussels, the EU executive body will come forward with a proposal that will focus on the windfall profits from the immobilized assets of the Russian central bank. The leaders also discussed the situation regarding their migration policy, the EU's relationship with China, and other foreign policy issues.
He disagrees. We have to be very clear. It was mentioned Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine and China's responsibility as a member of the UN Security Council is crucial to uphold the values of the UN Charter and has to be addressed by us. All in all, this means continued engagement with China, but following a European approach that is based on our interests and on our values.
Von der Leyen revealed before the summit that the EU is mulling plans to strengthen the bloc's external borders and manage migration, including financial support to countries of origin.
Coming up, France braces for its sixth night of violence. Baltimore mass shooting leaves 2 dead and 28 injured. And WHO to declare artificial sweetener aspartame a possible carcinogen. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Please stay.
Counterpoint, kikilalanin natin ang pinakabagong muka na maghahatid sa atin ng balita dito sa Net25. Sino nga ba si Gianna Lianes? You are the great-granddaughter of the late President Diosdado Macapagal.
Yes, well, we call him our Inkong, and my mom, who's a writer, actually wrote a book about him.
PWD power couple in Paralympics. Chess gold medalist Jean Lee Nasita and basketball silver medalist Marlon Nasita. Ngayong Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net25. 9 out of 10 cases nadidismiss ng hukuman. It only means this dismal performance, incredible. Hindi nga ako makapaniwala, pero sila mismo nagsasabi. Ibig kong sabihin yan, hindi kayo preparado, hindi nyo pinag-aralan ng mga kaso, at wala kayong coordination doon sa mga pulis na nag-iimbestiga.
The pandemic created shortages of many things. One of them being felt now in the United Kingdom is a post-pandemic shortage of guide dogs. JC Umol reports.
The shortage is taking its toll on blind and partially sighted people in Britain. They face a wait of up to 2 years to get a new dog. It used to be 6 months. The guide dog charity in UK says the pandemic hit them hard. They say a halt in puppy breeding and training created a huge backlog of people waiting for a new animal. And staffing is another problem. Guide dog trainers are not easy to recruit because what they do is very unique. There aren't a lot of them. Training takes nearly 6 months, but can only begin after the dog reaches the age of 12 to 14 months. The washout rate is high. Only 55 to 60% of dogs can be successfully trained. The result for many visually impaired people is limited mobility and restrictions on their independence. Right now, there are 1,200 people on the guide dog waitlist in Britain. JC Umul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A training flight goes wrong after two Colombian Air Force T-27 Tucano planes collide midair near the API Air Base. A video shared on social media appears to capture the exact moment of the unfortunate event. In the footage, multiple planes are seen flying in close proximity with each other. Suddenly, a wing of one of the planes ignites in a vivid display of flames. The Colombian Air Force confirms the death of one pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Mario Andrade Espinosa Gonzalez. The pilots were practicing for a scheduled air show in the city of Rio Negro.
A tornado ripped through the central region of the western Canadian province of Alberta, damaging several homes and farm buildings. The twister destroyed 5 homes, leaving one woman trapped in her basement as her house above her collapsed in shambles. This eyewitness footage shows the devastation created by the storm Saturday afternoon. Fortunately, no one died. A few people suffered minor injuries. The tornado touched down between the small towns of Carstairs and Didsbury. It cut a swath more than 1 kilometer wide. More than a dozen homes sustained damage in the storm. It downpoured lines, wiped out farm buildings, and killed several heads of livestock and chickens.
Oh my God, so much debris in there. Oh, it's
Relatives of the French teenager shot by police during a traffic stop are pleading with protesters to stop the violence. The country is bracing itself for a 6th night of unrest as the anti-police demonstrations continue. DJ Evangelista has more.
Relatives of the slain 17-year-old say they are angry at the officer who killed the lad. But they also say they are not upset with the police in general and have faith in the country's justice system. The officer who shot the youth is in custody while a manslaughter investigation is underway. The youth died after the police tried to stop him for a traffic violation sparking the violence. Tens of thousands of police and other security forces have tried to control the riots. In a town south of Paris, rioters rammed a car into the house of the mayor, injuring his wife and one of his children. Elsewhere in the country, protesters have gone on a rampage, setting fires and destroying property. Hundreds have been arrested in the worst outbreak of civil violence since 2005, when 2 boys of African descent died following a police chase. At that time, police arrested more than 6,000 people. The violence has prompted some countries to issue travel advisories, urging their citizens to exercise caution due to the ongoing threat of terrorism. DJ Evangelista from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
French President Emmanuel Macron has stated that social media platforms and video games caused the rioting that ensued from the death of a 17-year-old. The 17-year-old died at the hands of law enforcement that sparked outrage across the country. In an emergency security meeting, Macron addresses that 1/3 of the arrested rioters were juvenile delinquents. He says that he thinks that the internet imprints a negative influence on children and teens. Social media platforms like Snapchat and TikTok play a major role in their young minds as their formative years happen.
2 people are dead and at least 28 wounded following a mass shooting in the U.S. city of Baltimore, Maryland. Several children are reported to be among the injured. Rosel Feria tells us more.
Baltimore police say at least 2 people opened fire shortly after midnight Sunday, spraying bullets at a crowd enjoying a street party in a working-class neighborhood. Dead are an 18-year-old woman and a 20-year-old man. The woman died at the scene, while doctors pronounced the man dead at a hospital. 9 people remained in hospital Sunday afternoon, 3 in critical condition. Police say more than a dozen of the wounded are under the age of 18. The motive is unclear. Police do not know whether the shooting is targeted or random. A manhunt is underway for the suspects. The violence comes as the U.S. gets set to celebrate Independence Day tomorrow, Tuesday. Baltimore is about 65 kilometers north of the U.S. capital. Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A friendly competition of a different sort. In the capital of Thailand, residents competed to see who could find the most garbage in an hour. Thomas I. Likeness picks up the story.
The air horn sounds and the contestants begin. The goal? To search the hidden corners of the city center in Bangkok for trash that has been squirreled away. This event has been imported from Japan, where it began. It's called spagomi. The term combines the Japanese words for sport and trash. The competition is being held in 21 countries. Thailand is one of them. The winners from each country will vie for the first Spagomi World Cup title. That will be held in December in Japan. In teams of 3, people collect waste within a 1 square kilometer area. The garbage is sorted into 4 categories: plastic waste, glass bottles and aluminum cans, paper waste, and cigarette butts. In Bangkok, 58 teams took part in the competition. In total, they collected more than 170 kilograms of garbage. Thomas I. Likeness from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Popular artificial sweetener aspartame found in diet sodas, sugar-free gum, and gelatin is expected to be labeled a possible carcinogen this month by the World Health Organization. Christina Aguirre has the details.
Reports are going viral of the World Health Organization Sub-Agency for Cancer Research IARC's plans of releasing a study this July that classifies common low-calorie sweetener aspartame as a possible cause of cancer in humans. Aspartame is found in many products and ingredients, such as yogurt, toothpaste, cereal, Diet Coke, and a wide range of sugar-free and low-calorie sugar products. But WHO's term possibly carcinogenic to humans means that there is little evidence of its carcinogenicity in humans. Meanwhile, the International Council of Beverages Associations condemned the leak report, saying it could mislead consumers. The report also does not take into account how much of a product a person can safely consume. Considering that the FDA has approved the use of aspartame, an average weight adult would have to finish 12 to 36 cans of Diet Coke to even be at risk. Christina Aguirre for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A 29-year-old elephant from Thailand, gifted to Sri Lanka more than 2 decades ago, has arrived back home. Thai authorities demand that the elephant be returned after allegations it suffered torture and neglect while being kept at a Buddhist temple. Jay Suarez has more details.
Mathu Raja traveled home inside a specially constructed steel crate aboard a cargo plane. The flight took about 5 hours. Upon arrival, handlers sprayed the 4,000-kilogram pachyderm with water. When rescued from the temple last year, veterinarians found Mathu Raja in pain and covered with abscesses. The elephant had apparently been forced to work with a logging crew and suffered abuse. Once it was healthy enough, authorities arranged a repatriation flight, which they say cost $700,000. That's more than 38 million pesos. For now, Mathu Raja will be quarantined at a nature reserve. Jay Suarez for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, Elon Musk limits Twitter use for unverified users. A European space agency launches a new space telescope. And Red Bull's Max Verstappen wins 5th consecutive Austrian Grand Prix. Catch more news in business, tech, and sports when we return.
Executive Chair Elon Musk announced Twitter is limiting how many tweets per day its users can read. The temporary emergency measure means verified accounts are limited to reading 6,000 posts a day. Unverified accounts are restricted to reading just 600 posts per day. Meanwhile, new unverified accounts would be limited to reading 300 posts per day. Musk also said that the temporary reading limitation will later be increased to 10,000 posts per day for verified users, 1,000 for unverified users, and 500 for new unverified users. The restrictions, according to Musk, aim to discourage extreme levels of data scraping and system manipulation on Twitter. What used to be a fantasy may soon be a reality with the first flying car stamped with an FAA approval. Stephanie Mayo has the data.
The world's first fully electric flying car from Chinese company Aleph Aeronautics has been certified by the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA. This means that the car is now allowed to be road, or in this case, also air tested and used for research and development or included in exhibitions. The flying car, called Aleph Model A, which can seat up to 2 people, is now available for pre-sale for the amount of $300,000 US. The vehicle can also be driven up to 200 miles on public roads and can take off vertically and horizontally within a flying range of 110 miles. Hundreds of people have already paid deposits to purchase the car, which, according to Aleph CEO Jim Duchovny, is expected to be available in 2025. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
There's another eye in the sky, and this one is looking at the dark corners of the universe. Catherine Ortula reports.
The European Space Agency's Euclid telescope blasted off early Saturday morning atop a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from a launch pad in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The agency had to turn to Elon Musk's SpaceX after Russia pulled its Soyuz rockets in response to sanctions over the war in Ukraine. Over the next 6 years, the telescope's 600-megapixel camera will capture images of about a third of the night sky. Scientists will be able to study how dark matter and dark energy affect the universe. It will take about a month for the telescope to get into position, about 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth. The space agency will then spend another 3 months testing the spacecraft's instruments before Euclid can begin sending data back to the Earth. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Industry-leading filmmakers and professionals gathered to unveil groundbreaking innovations at this year's Cinegear Expo. Introducing game-changing technologies, these creative architects continue to push the boundaries of motion picture production. To tell us more, Alan and Eva Basayahe in Hollywood, California, with a report.
Cinegear, the trade show for professionals in the motion picture and video production industry, returns to Paramount Studios for its annual event.
With expos in Atlanta, New York, and here in Los Angeles, Cinegear showcases the latest in equipment, services, and emerging technology crucial for filmmakers.
You see virtual production being used all over the place, from The Mandalorian to The Batman. And what's great is being able to use one of our robots with it, a Sisu Cinema robot. Gives you incredible dynamic shots that you can get with this virtual production screen. The problem with traditional green screen is the actors didn't really have anything to act against because they just had a blank background to work against. So now they actually can interact with the environment. It also provides additional lighting.
So Kingdom Flow Lighting is about color correct lighting for the film and movie industry. To our left is a demonstration of the Mimic video tile. It has RGB WW pixels instead of just RGB. There's a 2700 Kelvin and a 6500 Kelvin white LED per pixel. The conversion from RGB to 5-color is being done at the tile itself, and it provides color correct foreground lighting. It's not intended for a direct view by camera, it's intended to light the foreground.
We make the world's standard long distance microscope, and we make all different kinds of products for surveillance and for general scientific and industrial purposes. So I then developed these for cinematography. Instead of using endoscopes, as has previously been done, I have in this lens microscope principles. So these are the first digitally dedicated lenses in the world. You see how many people are attending to our booth. And so it's been a wonderful experience in a year.
Inspiring creativity and fostering connections, Cinegear also offers masterclasses and networking opportunities for industry experts looking to stay on top of the latest trends.
And being that it takes place at an actual film studio, I get the chance to end the report with these famous words.
That's a wrap.
Reporting from Hollywood, California, Alan and Eva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Red Bull's Max Verstappen strolls to his 5th consecutive win at the Austrian Grand Prix. The Dutchman extended his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship to 81 points, with Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in 2nd place and Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez in 3rd. The 25-year-old won from pole position with the fastest lap as the reigning champions celebrated their 10th successive victory and 9th in as many races this season. He also won Saturday's 100-kilometer sprint race and leaves Spielberg's Red Bull Ring with quite a haul, with a 3rd world title already seeming inevitable for Verstappen. Meanwhile, before the start of the Grand Prix, a minute of silence was held in tribute to the 18-year-old driver Dilano van Hoff, who died during a junior race in Belgium on Saturday. The Dutchman was killed in a crash during the 2nd Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine race at Spa-Francorchamps. In billiards, James Aranas and Johan Chua win the 2023 World Cup of Pool in Spain, giving the Philippines its 4th title win. Aranas and Chua held off Germany in their 9-ball doubles, 11-7. They came into the tournament unseeded, but plowed through Spain, Chinese Taipei, and Austria, before beating German partners Joshua Fuller and Moritz Neuhausen in the finals. With the victory, the Philippines now has the most title wins in World Cup of Pool with 4 crowns in total. They joined the company of billiards legends Efren Bata Reyes and Francisco Django Bustamante in 2006 and 2009, and Dennis Orcolio and Lee Van Corteza in 2013. Filipino pole vaulter EJ Obiena earned himself a qualification for the 2024 Paris Olympics. This after he reached a qualification standard of 5.82 meters at the Bauhausgalan meet in Sweden, where the tournament is part of the 2023 Wanda Diamond League leg being hosted at the Stockholm Olympic Stadium. He took 2 attempts to clear 5.82 and finished second behind Sweden's Armand Duplantis. With this feat, Obiena becomes the first Filipino to clinch an Olympic qualification in the 2024 Summer Olympics. It will be Obiena's second trip to the Olympics after the Tokyo Games.
What a great Monday motivation.
I love
Our
that.
Filipino athletes are doing really well and they're
So
really well in the field.
inspirational.
That's right. And to start the week, here's a quote from 3-time F1 champion Niki Lauda. You should always discuss the defeats because you can learn much more from failure than from success.
I completely agree with this because I tend to be passive aggressive. Nobody likes failures. But when you really face them, you learn so much.
Yeah, that is so true. And you don't only learn from the do's, but the don'ts as well.
Yes, you learn more from the don'ts.
Exactly.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.